Here's the full 25-minute speech written as Dr. William Lee in flowing paragraphs, no headings, no bullets, modeled closely on the structure and craft of the reference script. I want you to do something right now before we go any further. Reach down and press your thumb firmly into the soft tissue just above your ankle bone. Hold it there. Count to 10. Now lift your thumb and watch. If you see a small crater in your skin, a dent that takes 10, 15, 30 seconds to slowly fill back in, I need you to keep watching this video because what you just felt is not a minor inconvenience. It is not old age. It is not something you simply accept because you are past 60. It is a signal your body has been sending you for months, possibly years, and the explanation nobody gave you is exactly what I'm going to walk you through today. My name is Dr. William Lee. I am a physician, scientist, and the author of Eat to Beat Disease. I have spent decades studying how the body heals itself, and the story of what is happening inside your swollen ankles after 60 is one of the most misunderstood stories in all of medicine. So stay with me, because the explanation changes everything. Here's the thing that frustrates me most about how ankle swelling is handled in clinical practice. The moment a patient over 60 mentions swollen ankles, the conversation immediately moves to the heart. An echocardiogram gets ordered. A cardiologist gets involved. Sometimes a prescription for a diuretic, a water pill, gets handed over before anyone has even asked the right questions. And in about 70% of cases, the heart comes back completely normal. The echocardiogram is fine. The ejection fraction is fine. The valves are fine. And yet the patient is still swollen. So they get the water pill anyway because the doctor needs to do something, and 3 months later, the patient is running to the bathroom every 40 minutes, perpetually dehydrated, and their ankles look exactly the same. I have seen this cycle play out hundreds of times. And every single time, the problem is not that the medicine failed. The problem is that the wrong question was asked from the beginning. The swelling in your ankles after 60 is, in the vast majority of cases, not a heart problem at all. It is a drainage problem. And the organ responsible is the one that nobody ever sits down to explain to you. Your body has two entirely separate circulatory systems. Most people know about the first one, blood. Arteries carry oxygen-rich blood from your heart out to every tissue in your body, and veins carry the used blood back. That system has a pump. Your heart beats 100,000 times a day, every day, without you having to think about it. It runs automatically. The second system, the one responsible for what is happening in your ankles, is called the lymphatic system. And here's the critical difference. It has no pump. None at all. Your lymphatic system is a vast, intricate network of thin-walled vessels running alongside your blood vessels everywhere in your body. Every single day, a thin, pale yellow fluid called lymph, roughly 2 liters of it, leaks gently out of your tiny blood capillaries into the surrounding tissues. This fluid bathes your cells, picks up cellular waste, dead bacteria, excess protein fragments, and critically, excess water. Then it has to travel back into the bloodstream through an entirely separate set of drainage channels: the lymph capillaries, the lymph vessels, the lymph nodes, and finally the thoracic duct, which empties back into your venous blood near your collarbone. 2 liters every single day, but without a heart to drive it. So how does lymph move? It moves when you move. Your lymph vessels are embedded in the tissues surrounding your muscles. Every time a muscle contracts, every time your calf squeezes during a step, every time your ankle flexes as you walk, it physically compresses the lymph vessels and pushes the fluid upward. The lymph vessels have one-way valves inside them, just like your veins, so the fluid can only travel in one direction, up and back toward the heart. Think of it as a manual pump. Your calf muscles are the piston. Your steps are the strokes. When you are walking, the lymphatic pump is running. When you are sitting still in a chair for 3 hours, the pump stops. The fluid simply pools. Gravity pulls it downward into the loose connective tissue around your ankles and the top of your feet, and it sits there quietly accumulating, a teaspoon at a time, building the reservoir that becomes the swelling you notice by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, when you are 30, this is a minor inconvenience at most. The lymph vessels are elastic and responsive. The valves are tight and competent. A 20-minute walk is enough to clear a day's worth of pooled fluid within the hour. But after 60, 3 things change simultaneously, and they compound each other in a way that the textbooks rarely describe clearly. First, the walls of your lymph vessels stiffen. The smooth muscle tissue embedded in those walls, which creates a gentle peristaltic pumping motion on its own, loses tone and responsiveness with age. Second, the tiny one-way valves inside the vessels begin to leak. They no longer seal completely between contractions, so fluid that gets pushed upward can slide back down when the muscle relaxes. And third, the connective tissue around your ankles, the loose extracellular matrix that provides structural support to the whole region, loses its own elasticity, making it far easier for fluid to accumulate and much harder for it to be reabsorbed once it has settled in. Add to this the reality that most people over 60 are sitting more than they ever did before, retired, working from home, watching more television, recovering from joint pain that makes walking uncomfortable, and the math stops working entirely. The input exceeds the drainage capacity every single day, and the reservoir grows. Before I go any further, I need to draw a line that I take very seriously as a physician. There are patterns of ankle swelling that are not a drainage issue. They are medical emergencies, and you need to know the difference right now. If one leg, just one leg, suddenly swells dramatically more than the other, appears red, feels warm to the touch, and is painful, please stop this video and go to an emergency room today. That pattern points to a deep vein thrombosis, a blood clot in the deep veins of the leg. It is dangerous. It can travel to the lungs. Time matters. If your leg swelling is accompanied by shortness of breath, especially when you lie flat, if you are waking up gasping in the night, if you cannot walk up a single flight of stairs without stopping to catch your breath, that is not a drainage problem. That is a heart that has moved beyond the early stages of strain, and it needs evaluation urgently. If your swelling is accompanied by very rapid weight gain, 4 or 5 pounds in a single week, along with urine that looks foamy or frothy, that combination suggests your kidneys may be leaking protein. That needs blood work this week, not next month. And if you have a personal history of cancer, particularly cancer that was treated with surgery or radiation in the pelvic or inguinal region, and one leg is swelling painlessly and feels firm or heavy, please see your physician. Lymph node disruption from cancer treatment can cause a specific form of lymphatic swelling called lymphedema that requires specialized care. I say all of this not to frighten you, but because distinguishing the dangerous patterns from the common pattern is the most important thing I can do for you today. If none of those descriptions fit you, if your swelling is gradual, affects both ankles fairly equally, is noticeably worse by evening, and noticeably better after a night of sleep, and you have no difficulty breathing at rest, then the rest of this conversation is for you. There is a woman I want to tell you about. I will call her Margaret. She was 64 years old, a retired high school librarian, and she walked into a consultation absolutely convinced that her heart was giving out. She had been told this was likely. For 2.5 years, her ankles had been swelling. At first barely noticeable, just a little puffiness at the end of a long day, then enough that her favorite walking shoes no longer fit comfortably. She bought wider shoes. The swelling progressed into the top of her foot. Her rings would tighten by midday. She pressed her thumb into her shin one evening and watched the dent stay there for nearly 2 minutes. She was frightened, and reasonably so. She saw her primary care physician, who ordered an echocardiogram. The results came back with a completely normal ejection fraction of 64%. Her cardiologist reviewed the scan and agreed, structurally, the heart looked healthy. Nevertheless, she was started on a loop diuretic. She took it faithfully for 7 months. She lost a tremendous amount of fluid from her blood. She was dizzy in the mornings. She had muscle cramps at night from the electrolyte losses. She was exhausted, and her ankles remained stubbornly, persistently swollen every single evening. She told me something that immediately reframed everything. She said, "The strange thing is, on holidays, we went to Portugal last spring and I was walking everywhere, cobblestones and hills for 8 hours a day, and my ankles were almost normal by the 4th day." That one observation was the clinical key. Her swelling improved dramatically with sustained movement and worsened with sustained rest. Her heart was not the problem. Her lymphatic pump was simply not getting the mechanical stimulation it needed to keep up with normal daily fluid accumulation. What Margaret had was stage 2 lymphatic insufficiency, a term that almost no general practitioner ever says out loud. And no pill in the world was going to fix it, because pills work on the bloodstream and the fluid was not in her bloodstream. It was in her tissues, different compartment, different solution entirely. Let me walk you through a single ordinary day in the life of someone with this condition, because understanding the timeline is what makes the evening protocol make sense. You wake up in the morning and your ankles look almost normal. Why? Because you have been lying flat for 7 or 8 hours. Without gravity pulling fluid into your lower legs, and with the gentle normal movements of sleep, turnitis, endi and say, and datisir, endi, and say, enter turning over, stretching, your lymphatic system had all night to slowly work through the backlog. By morning, you are close to your baseline. You get up, make breakfast, sit at the kitchen table for 45 minutes. Sit in the car for 20 minutes driving to an appointment. Sit in the waiting room for 30 minutes. Come home, sit in your armchair for 2 hours after lunch. By 2 in the afternoon, you have been vertical, but almost entirely still for 6 or 7 hours. During every one of those hours, your capillaries have been quietly leaking lymph fluid into the tissues of your lower legs at the normal physiological rate, and your lymphatic pump, for lack of any calf muscle contractions to drive it, has been sitting nearly idle. The fluid is accumulating. You cannot feel it yet, but it is there. By 5 o'clock, you notice the tightness in your shoes. By 7, the sock line is visible. By 9, your ring is pressing. By 10, you go to bed. And now the most consequential part of the cycle begins. When you lie down, gravity is no longer holding that half-liter or full liter of excess fluid in your ankles. It slowly redistributes. It gets reabsorbed into your capillaries and re-enters your bloodstream. And your heart, which has been managing a relatively stable blood volume all day, suddenly receives an unexpected additional load. Your kidneys detect the change in circulating volume and respond the way kidneys are supposed to respond, by producing more urine. So at midnight, you wake up to urinate. At 2:30, at 4:15, you are exhausted. You have trouble falling back to sleep. Your sleep architecture is disrupted. You wake up unrested. You sit more the next day because you are tired. And the cycle deepens, month after month, year after year. This is not simply a cosmetic inconvenience. Disrupted sleep increases cortisol. Elevated cortisol worsens inflammation. Inflammation stiffens the very lymph vessel walls we are talking about. The problem feeds itself. Now I want to talk about 3 everyday habits that make lymphatic swelling dramatically worse, because most people over 60 are doing all 3 of them without any idea of the impact. The first is hidden dietary sodium. Not the salt shaker, that is rarely the main source. The problem is the sodium embedded invisibly in the foods that form the backbone of convenience eating after retirement. Packaged cheese, cured and processed meats, canned soups, store-bought bread, condiments, restaurant meals, frozen ready-made dinners. The physiological rule is approximately this. For every gram of excess sodium your body holds onto, it retains roughly 4 cups of water to dilute that sodium back to safe blood concentrations. Your body is not malfunctioning when it does this. It is protecting you from sodium toxicity, but the consequence is that all that retained water has to go somewhere, and for someone with compromised lymphatic drainage, it goes straight to the ankles. Most older adults consuming a typical Western diet are taking in nearly double the sodium they believe they are. The second habit is sitting after dinner. The hours between 7 and 10 in the evening, when you finally sit down in the recliner or on the couch after the day is done, are the hours when your legs are at their most fluid-loaded and your lymphatic pump is at its most idle. 3 hours of immobility following your largest meal of the day creates the worst possible conditions for what happens overnight. The fluid that could have been drained before you lie down instead reabsorbs all at once during the first hours of sleep, flooding your kidneys with work right when your body should be resting. The third is alcohol in the evening. I know this is not what anyone wants to hear, but even a single glass of wine before bed has a measurable effect on ankle swelling by the following morning through 3 separate mechanisms. Alcohol dilates your capillaries, which increases the rate at which fluid leaks from blood vessels into surrounding tissues. It suppresses vasopressin, the antidiuretic hormone that tells your kidneys to slow urine production at night so your kidneys stay active when they should be quiet. And it disrupts the deeper stages of sleep, which reduces the restorative nighttime lymph flow that depends on deep diaphragmatic breathing. 1 drink, you will see the difference in the mirror the next morning. Now let me tell you what actively supports lymphatic drainage, because this story is not just about what to avoid. Hydration is the first and most counterintuitive intervention. Almost every patient I have ever had with ankle swelling has unconsciously been restricting their fluid intake because they assume, completely logically, that more fluid in means more fluid pooling in the legs. The opposite is true. Dehydration thickens lymph. When lymph fluid becomes viscous, it moves more slowly through the vessels, the valves do not clear as cleanly, and the whole system becomes sluggish. A well-hydrated body produces thin, free-flowing lymph that moves efficiently in response to even gentle muscle contractions. The target is roughly half your body weight in ounces of water per day, distributed across the morning and afternoon, with intake tapering meaningfully after 5 in the evening, so you are not adding to the overnight reabsorption burden. Specific foods matter here more than most people realize, and this is where my research background is directly relevant. Foods rich in natural flavonoids, a sector is there in savor and nature. Sager beer bands a class of plant compounds that has been shown in clinical studies to strengthen the walls of small blood vessels and reduce capillary permeability, can meaningfully reduce the rate at which fluid leaks into tissues in the first place. The best dietary sources are dark berries, blueberries, blackberries, bilberries, buckwheat. The white inner layer of citrus peel, the beta fructi sans adenatri, insansir and san, the pith, which is extraordinarily rich in hesperidin and rutin, both well-studied flavonoids. And red cabbage. Eating a cup of mixed dark berries daily has shown measurable effects on capillary integrity over about 8 weeks in controlled trials. That is not a supplement claim. That is food as medicine, and the mechanism is well established. Protein is another intervention that surprises people. One of the quiet, underdiagnosed drivers of tissue swelling in older adults is low albumin, a specific blood protein whose job is to maintain what is called oncotic pressure inside blood vessels. Albumin essentially holds water inside the bloodstream by creating an osmotic gradient. When albumin levels fall, as they commonly do in older adults who are not eating enough high-quality protein or who have chronic low-grade inflammation that suppresses albumin synthesis, water leaks out of the capillaries and into the surrounding tissues more readily. You can drain all you want, but if the leak rate is elevated because of low albumin, you are bailing water from a leaky boat. 2 servings of high-quality protein per day, eggs, fish, chicken, lentils, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, directly addresses the physics of why the fluid is leaving the bloodstream in excess. And magnesium, deficient in the majority of adults over 60, yet involved in smooth muscle tone throughout the body, including the smooth muscle cells embedded in lymph vessel walls that contribute to the intrinsic pumping action of the lymphatic system. Pumpkin seeds, dark leafy greens, and almonds are the most accessible dietary sources. If you are not getting sufficient magnesium from food, a magnesium glycinate supplement at 200 to 300 milligrams before bed is one of the most well-tolerated and physiologically logical interventions I know of for supporting both lymphatic function and sleep quality simultaneously. Now I want to give you the protocol. This is the part that took Margaret from swollen and sleep-deprived to sleeping through the night in 3 weeks. Every element of it is grounded in the physiology I have just described. There are no gadgets. There is no special equipment. There is no expense. Every part of it works by giving your lymphatic system the mechanical stimulation it cannot generate on its own because you are no longer moving the way you once were. Start tomorrow morning before your feet touch the floor. While you are still lying in bed, do 30 ankle pumps. Point your toes down firmly toward the foot of the bed, then flex them back toward your face as far as they will go. 30 repetitions. It takes under a minute. What you are doing is restarting lymphatic flow after 7 or 8 hours of sleep, during which gravity was off and the valves were resting. The morning pump primes the system before you stand up, and gravity begins pulling fluid downward again. Without it, the fluid rushes south the moment you become vertical, and the system is already behind before breakfast. Throughout the day, every hour that you are seated, perform 20 calf raises or seated calf pumps. If you are in a chair, heels flat on the floor, raise your toes and the balls of your feet as high as you can, then lower them. 20 repetitions. If you can stand, rise onto the balls of your feet as high as you can, pause at the top for 1 second, then lower. 20 repetitions. 30 seconds. Set a timer on your phone if you need to. This is not exercise in the cardiovascular sense. This is mechanical lymphatic drainage. You are squeezing the pump every 60 minutes, so the fluid never gets more than an hour ahead of you. Before dinner, not after before, take a 5-minute walk. It does not need to be vigorous. Around the block, around the house, up and down the driveway, 3 times. The purpose is to activate the deep calf muscles in a way that seated ankle pumps cannot fully replicate. Walking creates a rhythmic, full-range compression and release of the calf muscle bellies, drives lymph upward through the popliteal vessels behind the knee, through the inguinal nodes at the groin, and back toward the thoracic duct. 5 minutes before dinner, before you sit down for the evening, The evening component is the most important piece of this entire protocol, and I want you to do it tonight. 90 minutes before you intend to go to sleep, and not right before bed, 90 minutes before, lie on the floor or on a firm bed and place your legs straight up against the wall. Your heels rest against the wall, your legs are as vertical as you can manage, and your hips are directly against the baseboard. Your hips should be higher than your heart, and your ankles higher than your hips. This position reverses the pressure gradient that has been working against you all day. Gravity, which has been your enemy since you got out of bed, is now your partner. The fluid in your ankles will begin to drain passively the moment you assume this position, even before you do anything else. Stay there for 15 minutes. During the first 5 minutes, do slow ankle circles, 10 rotations in each direction. This is active lymphatic drainage. You are mechanically milking the vessels at the most distal point in the system, where the fluid is most congested. Then do 20 alternating ankle flexes, 1 foot pointed, 1 flexed, alternating rhythmically. Then, and this is the part that even most physicians don't know, place both palms flat on your abdomen and breathe. Slowly, deeply, in through your nose, allowing your belly to rise fully under your hands, then exhale completely through your mouth. Do this for 3 full minutes. The thoracic duct, Faber insal and retail and interperiker cacao, the main drainage vessel of your entire lymphatic system, the single channel through which virtually all lymph eventually returns to the bloodstream, runs directly behind your diaphragm. Every deep diaphragmatic breath physically compresses and releases the thoracic duct, creating a pressure gradient that pulls lymph upward from your lower extremities. Your breath is a lymphatic pump. Most of us breathe too shallowly, too fast, and too high in the chest to activate it. 3 minutes of deliberate belly breathing while your legs are elevated is more effective at clearing lower extremity lymph than 30 minutes of sitting with your feet on a stool. When the 15 minutes are complete, roll to your side, sit up slowly, and do the final step. Starting at your ankle, use the flat surface of your fingers, not your fingertips, the whole flat, and apply gentle sweeping strokes upward from the ankle toward the knee. Slow, deliberate, always toward the heart, never downward. 10 strokes on each leg, the full length from ankle to knee. This is a simplified form of what lymphatic therapists call manual lymphatic drainage, and the principle is straightforward. You are physically moving the interstitial fluid from the tissue into the lymph capillaries, which are just beneath the skin, and from there the lymphatic valves take over. Do not press hard. The lymph capillaries are extremely superficial. And then and so we see firm pressure actually compresses them shut. Light pressure, slow movement, always upward. Within 20 to 30 minutes of completing this sequence, you will almost certainly need to urinate. The urine will be pale. You may produce 300 to 400 milliliters. That is the fluid you just cleared from your lower extremity tissues. Fluid that, had you gone straight to bed instead, would have reabsorbed into your bloodstream over the first 2 hours of sleep, overloaded your kidneys at midnight, and woken you at 2 and 4 and 5:30 in the morning. You drained it while you were awake. You gave your kidneys a gentle, manageable job to do before sleep rather than an overwhelming one during sleep.